Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Behind me, 2008 Toyota Prius. We got a big project. We're gonna be rebuilding the engine. This video will focus on the timing chain, getting that cover off, getting the chain off, and setting the engine to top dead center. Let's get started. First thing we wanna do before we get too crazy with it is right here, there's an orange service plug. We wanna push that up, then over and out. So for draining our coolant, we have two radiators on this. We have the main radiator and then the inverter radiator. The main radiator is drained by that drain right there, but if you're unable to get to it, that's okay. When we pull the water pump off, our coolant will come out there if you can't get it here. So not a big deal. All right, moving along, we got our cowl to take off. Our wiper arms are 14 millimeter. Give them a wiggle and they should pop up. There we go. Our top plastic can come off. Should just pop up. There we go. Take this little rubber. There we go. Just have to maneuver it. It was kind of stuck under the hood just a smidge here. So that side's off. Come over to this side. Now this vehicle does not have clips on the side, but if you have clips, there may be one on this end and one on that end. There we go. Perfect. Now we'll remove our wiper motor, unplug it, and then 10 millimeter bolts. Just set this aside. And now our bottom tray. We have this harness we can disconnect from the back with just a pair of pliers. I like using a little small needle nose like this. You just pinch the back of it and it pops through. There we go. And then same with this one here. Just want to pinch it, pop it up. We have our relay box, two 10 millimeters. I'm just gonna put these bolts right back in. Pull up and out. Nice, that gives us a lot of room to work with. So next we wanna get access to our valve cover. We're gonna pull off our air box. 10 mil here. Might actually be an 8, let me see. No, 10 mil. Now it's okay if you do this stuff out of order, it really doesn't matter. We're just trying to get access to pull our valve cover off. So this pipe is screwed in from the bottom, so you just leave it just like this. Put the radiator cap back on so nothing falls inside. We have two 10 millimeters back here. There we go. Got our mass airflow, we can just unplug. And then there's a clip right here with a flathead screwdriver. Just pull up on that clip. There we go. Now mine just pulled up, but if yours does not pull up, there's a 10 millimeter clamp right here in the front, right underneath our mass airflow sensor, just in case you need that. Mine just wiggled right up. We'll loosen that up before putting it back on. So just something to note. Move this just out of the way. We'll remove our brake reservoir. There's an electrical connector on this side. Pop that out. And it looks like two 10 millimeter bolts. There we go. Kind of locks in the front, so slide it backwards and up. We'll just get this out of the way. Probably use a bungee cord and put these back in. And we're gonna get all our electrical connectors out of the way. For our ignition coils, these like to break a lot. If you just push on the tab, they like to snap. So I like using just a little pick here, getting in front of them and popping them up from the front and then wiggle them off. If they do break, that's okay. They will slide back on and not come off. But if you want these safety tabs, then this is how I like doing it. Just pop this out of the way here. Okay. Our fuel injectors, pop those off. Nice. Now we have our main harness here, 10 millimeter. And we have this little plastic plate we can slide out. All right, that's good for now. We're not gonna pull the cover off yet because I don't wanna get any dirt and stuff in the engine while we're still working around here. So we're just gonna leave the cover on. That gives us our access. Now we're gonna work over here so we got access to our timing cover. We're gonna get our reservoir out of the way, 10 millimeter back here. We have this connector attached to it here. Just push that through. Okay, we can even unplug it if we want to, just to give us a little more freedom. I believe that's it. And it comes up. And maybe this has to come up first. This little piece just has a little clip in the front. This clip was missing. And it just pops out pretty easy. Let's see if that's what we needed. Get to the electrical connectors. Should just be two, one for the front pump, one for the rear pump. There we go. Perfect. So now we got our hoses. There we go. There we go. Hopefully I don't do this too often, but I wasn't recording. So we got the bottle out The next thing I did was just took this off. Just our bracket that our brake reservoir was connected to. Two 10mm bolts up top, one in the front, and then this little hose here was pushed in right here. You just take a pair of pliers, pop that out. And we don't have to pull this out, we just have to just set it aside like that, no big deal. Now we have access to our engine mount. So what we want to do is take a jack, put it under the engine, put just a little bit of pressure on it. We want to support the engine while we pull off our mount. They all look like 14mm. I think that's it. Oh, there's one underneath. So there are two more from underneath. Let me show you real quick. So that's one there under the engine mount, and there's one more behind it. So we'll get those from underneath, no big deal. Another thing I want to show you while we're here, before we take our drive belt off, we're gonna go ahead and crack those three 10mm bolts holding our water pump pulley on. We don't have to take them all the way out, we're just gonna crack them loose. It's kind of hard to see from this angle in the lighting, but in order to pull those bolts off, we have to hold the pump in place to prevent that pulley from spinning. So I'm gonna try this, don't know if it'll work, but I'm gonna see if I can tighten the belt by tightening the tensioner. It's a 14mm. We'll break loose that pulley bolt. There we go. And then a 12mm tensioner bolt right here on top. We'll see if we can really snug that down. Get it nice and tight. Okay. We'll take a 10mm ratchet and see if we can just pop these loose. Okay, there's one. Yeah, that worked. You just have to kind of give it a little jerk and it'll pop. See if we can get the other two. Nice, okay. That was two. One more. Okay, I think that's it. Sweet, it worked. So now we can actually take the belt off completely. All right, we'll just get that belt from underneath. Okay, the top down below. We got it jacked up, we'll pull our tire off. So now for this cover, we got a couple of clips up here. We'll pop that off and then see what else we have. So yours might look different getting this plastic off, but just follow it, try to figure out how it comes off. Mine has zip ties and stuff that'll be clipped and a couple of screws because my bumper here is not complete. But just methodically follow it, figure out how it comes off. But that's our next step. We want to get this whole plastic piece off and out of the way. So now from underneath, now we can see clearly those two bolts. We'll pop those off, still 14mm. We can pull off our water pump pulley too while we're down here. Those should just be finger tight now. And then once that's off, then we can get our big bracket off as well. Then we also have our crank pulley that we'll pull off too. Making good progress. Let me get those. One thing I'm gonna do is go up top and put on some top bolts. Since these are coming from underneath, I don't wanna be underneath here if something fails. So I'm gonna secure the top back up, then pull these off, and then retake off the top one so I can be up above while this mount comes off. We'll pull off the bracket holding our AC line on. And then this hose goes to, looks like our purge solenoid, 10mm for that as well. Okay, let's see if this can come up. Okay, I must be missing something. Let me show you something real quick. So this stud here is actually a bolt. Let me show you. If you follow, come down here. Let me turn the light on. It's that bolt right there. So I'm gonna see if that bolt can back out. I think that's what's holding us up. It's also a 14mm. Let me see. Yep, I think that was it. Because it was just at an angle and this needs to come straight up. Yeah, there we go. Nice. And then we have one more bolt holding that other bracket on. There we go. Kind of hard to see, but I'm just taking the metal bracket off that has our tensioner pulley on. It's 14mm. I broke loose with a ratchet. Now we'll see if we can get him with my electric ratchet. Now my ratchet's stuck. There we go. So if that happens to you, I took the battery out so it wouldn't keep turning on as I took it out. But that was just for that bottom one. There we go. Also, by jacking up the engine a little like I did, gave us better access to that middle one. Nice. And just the top one. Is there one more? There is one more, so there's 4 total. It's right underneath the tensioner pulley. Okay, perfect. Let's pull our crank pulley off, 19mm. Should come out pretty easy. Oh, nice. Let me move you real quick and we'll pull off our crank position sensor. Hopefully you can see better. So on our connector, there's a tab right here. We want to pull it all the way back. It's kind of hard to do with your fingers, but there. And then it should slide right off. So right here is this little tab you want to pull back. So that gets our connector off. 10mm holds it in. And it's really long. There we go, and out. So now from up above, we'll pull off our water pump. Want to have a catch pan underneath. There's a lot of coolant's gonna come dripping out. I just wanted to show you, I need a little more room for my catch pan. So I took the jack out. I put a jack stand underneath the engine. That's holding it up for now. So I was able to take the jack out to get my big catch pan under here. For the water pump, it's just a cute little pump right there. A couple of 10mm bolts and we'll pull that out. All right, now we just have to pull the valve cover and then we can pull off the timing cover. 10mm bolt holds our coils in. Like a rock. That's weird. Beautiful little moth. Now there should be two 10mm bolts in the middle. And then our perimeter bolts, all 10mm. And still have our two hoses on the side here. Little breather hoses. There we go. So they give you a little spot right here to pry up on. There we go. Let's pop that seal. Nice. Some of the gasket's still stuck to the head. There we go. One thing I forgot here is our VVT solenoid. We can unplug it. A little assistance with this one. And then a 10mm twist and pop it out. We also have this ground strap. There's a 10mm right here on the frame. We'll just pop that off. There we go. Now for our timing cover, I'll throw where the bolts are up on the screen, but there's not really much for filming. We're just getting all those bolts off, and then we'll pop it away from the engine and then wiggle it up. All right, I think I got all the bolts. I double checked. I think we're good. And remember, as you're pulling the bolts off, to get better access, you can always raise the engine or lower the engine as needed. Let me get a little pry bar and we'll start prying this away. Just try up here first real quick. There we go. Try back here. Well, this will just be really sticky because of the RTV. Get a little in here. There we go. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. I think we're still a little glued down at the bottom. There we go. Okay, should pull up. Nice. I'm gonna pull this little herd solenoid hose off. Or it can come out the bottom. Ugh. All right, there we go. That's it. Now mine came out the bottom, but if you're pulling it out of the top, I would have had to pull this hose off. Now we want to put this at cylinder 1, top dead center. To make it easier to turn the engine over, I'm going to pull the spark plugs out real quick. Now I'm just putting the crank pulley bolt back in. I think that's it. Let me show you real quick. So on the exhaust, there's one line facing straight up, and then on the intake, there's a line there facing straight up as well. So both lines facing straight up, and then down on the crank, we have our notch there. Really hard to see, but there's a little dimple. Can you see it right there? That little dimple is facing 3 o'clock. And that's it. Timing set, now we can pull the chain. Everything's a 10mm. Getting the tensioner from down below. And that guide should be able to just slide off. There we go. And the other arm, one bolt from down below. One bolt from up above. There we go. And that's it. Out we go. All right, we got the timing chain off, making awesome progress. This is gonna wrap up this video in this series. Here we are on our last video. We're gonna button up this project. We're gonna do the timing, valve cover, fill it up with fluids, and start it for the first time. You ready? Let's do it. So I had the valve cover just resting on here to keep it clean while we were moving around. So we will remove it. There we go. So we should have our timing marks pretty much where we want them, but we did move our number 1 piston away from top dead center. So we're gonna re-top dead center that one. Our chain should be pretty easy. Let me grab the chain real quick. So the chain routing, it has these colored links. There's 2 darker colored links. Those are for the cams. And then we have this lighter colored link. That's for the crank. Now in our kit, it gave us a new sprocket. Just one, not our VVT phaser, but just the standard sprocket. So we're gonna go ahead and replace that. There's a spot on the cam that we can put a wrench. Let me get that size. I couldn't find my wrench, but that's okay. We're just gonna use a pair of vice grips. You're not gonna damage anything. They make that spot particularly for this. All right, now we'll bust that loose. Looks like a 14 mil. Ugh. Oh, got it. Okay. Just took a little muscles. Pull this out, pop this off, put in our shiny new one. Now it's keyed, so it's pretty dummy proof. I've been known to be a dummy sometimes, so I'm glad they do stuff like that. Just for me. Okay, we'll thread the bolt back on. We'll get a torque. The torque is 47 foot-pounds. My back is probably gonna be in your way. Okay, nice. Feels good to have a new sprocket. Just make sure we're still timing marks in the right spot. Okay, we can go underneath and move the crank back. Let me show you where that timing mark is. So our cam phaser is pointing straight up, and we got that nice line. And then this over here, there should be that line. Now there is an IN and an EX. Don't worry about those markings. It's just that plain timing mark. We'll go underneath, and we want our dimple right there to be at 3 o'clock roughly. Now it's okay if it's a little off, because the most important is that our timing link, that colored link, lines up here. So we have to move the crank clockwise or counterclockwise just a smidge. That's okay. We just want our links to line up. Same with up here. If we have to move our cam to the left or to the right, that's okay. We just want our links to line up with our timing marks. It's that easy. So let's do it. Feed this through. Put that link there. That link there. Go underneath. I'm just gonna have to move my crank just a little. I'm 1 tooth off. All right, now let's put our guides on. And we have our guide arm. We'll throw that in. We want to make sure that the chain is centered inside that guide. Okay, now we have 80 inch-pounds. And we have our tensioner arm. I'll put on from underneath. Now we have our cute little tensioner we'll put on. I have to get that from underneath. We want as much slack as possible on that tensioner side. That'll make it easier to get this on. These are also 80 inch-pounds. I'll get them from underneath. All right, let me show you how everything looks. So up top, we have our colored link right on our mark. Then we have that colored link right on its mark. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we want these marks. There's also a mark or a little bump on the back of our cam cap here. Same here. So that's how we line these up with that. So we got our marks lined up underneath. We got that mark lined up as well. Show you our tensioner right there. We want to pull that yellow pin, and then our tensioner will release, and that's it. Next thing we want to do is turn the crankshaft 2 full revolutions. And while we're turning the crankshaft, we're making sure nothing is binding inside. And when we come back on our second revolution, we want to make sure that our timing marks still line up. So let me do that real quick. And that's 2. All right, let's check our marks. Now we're not worried about the colored links anymore. We're just worried about these notches. They line up with the back. And then make sure this one here lines up with the back. Okay, and then down here we're about 3 o'clock. And there we go, 3 o'clock. And everything felt smooth when we were turning the crank. So our timing is set. Let's get our timing cover back on. All right, here's our timing cover. It's best to use a plastic scraper, but I cannot find any more plastic blades. So because this is getting RTV as a gasket, I feel comfortable using a metal blade, but normally plastic blades are what you want. We just want to get rid of all the old material as much as possible. Okay, all this old material. Even from our channels, there's a few channels that are important. That's like an overflow channel. That way if you put a little too much RTV, it won't go in somewhere it's not supposed to. Get these middle ones, get these. All right, sweet. I'm gonna blow this out real quick. All right, nice. Now this was taken to the machine shop so they could put it through their parts washer because it was pretty grimy. So I took the oil pump out. We can install that real quick. I'm gonna use a little assembly lube for that. Just wipe off our components. Just gonna put a little lube on this. Okay. Just rub it around. Get it all over as much as possible. Nice tight fit. There we go. Then we have our inner. We'll do the same thing. Okay. So I'll wipe this all off and just make it look good. I guess it's internal, it doesn't matter what it looks like, but helps me sleep at night. That's it. This already has lubrication, so we should be good there. It should go on just one way. Let's figure out this shape here. There we go. There is no gasket for it. Now because this will be spinning dry for a little bit, I'm just gonna douse just a little oil, not a lot, just a little. Okay. That makes me feel just a little better. Okay, now we got our bolts. I don't have a torque spec on this, but based on the timing chain torque for the guides and tensioner, I'm gonna say 80 inch-pounds is probably good enough. I don't have a torque wrench for this, but just tight. I guess I could do those because this bit comes out. Let's see what size that is, probably 8mm. Why not, right? So next we're gonna take out our front oil seal. Get a screwdriver, a little pry bar. We should be able to just pop up on it. There we go. Wipe this out. We're gonna put just a little bit of lubricant on the inside. On our new seal, we're gonna put a little bit of lubricant on the outside and on the inside. Then we're gonna pop it in. These go in pretty easy, but just all the way down until it bottoms out. That's it. So this thing is prepped, and we're gonna flip it over. We're gonna apply our RTV. So now our RTV, we still have a lot left over in the tube they gave us, which is sweet. We want to go to the inside of every bolt. So we'll go inside, 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 all the way around on the inside. Now when it comes to the water pump, we want the inside of the bolts, but because we don't want any coolant to get into our crankcase mixing in with our oil, I'm gonna go around each bolt and then just around each bolt with the water pump. We're not worried about this because this is external. So we just go to the inside, 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 all the way around. We'll go around this bolt. And then it's just to the inside, so it's pretty easy. Oh, and then we want this spot here and this spot here, not here and not here. Those are getting O-rings on the engine side. And one thing I want to do first, I'm just gonna clean this off really good. Okay, there we go. We're gonna go around these. It doesn't take a lot because these are machine surfaces, so they lay pretty flush, or pretty tight. I mean, whoops, didn't need to go around that one. So like in some of these places, I made it a little too thick. Well, not too thick, it'll be okay. It'll just goop out. Okay, go around this one to the inside. Okay, double check, make sure all the areas have a good coverage. Looking good, looking good, looking good. Okay, I'm just gonna come to the inside a little more on this one. Okay. All right, now our inside. There we go. And then, there we go. And now we have these O-rings we're gonna install on the engine. Let me show you that real quick. So we have this lower small one here. That's for our oil pump. And then we have this one right here, the bigger one, that's for our coolant. So you wanna make sure we have both of those seals in. Now we're ready to put the timing cover on. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go in from underneath. Is that how it came out? There we go, over the crank. We might have to turn our oil pump a little to get the crank to line up. So funny, coming up from the bottom is the ticket. What I forgot to do is take off the crank pulley bolt from when we were adjusting the timing and spinning stuff. So I have to take this back out, take off that crank pulley bolt. All right, let's try again. I had to reapply some of that RTV in a few key places, but that's real life. Doing it from underneath though, that really is the way to go. Just trying to get the oil pump to line up. There we go. Got it. It was a little struggle getting that oil pump key to be right where the crank is, but You can spin it by hand, get it to line up. Let's throw a few bolts in, get it to squish out the side, then we'll wait the allotted time. The manual says within 15 minutes of installing the timing cover, while the RTV is still wet, we want to put in our water pump. So we got a new gasket, new water pump, and again, this will be put on from underneath. I will throw the torque spec on the screen. There are a couple of different torques depending on the bolt. Once we have all that torque down, the last thing we can do underneath on the timing cover is put our crank position sensor back in. Then we'll come up, we'll put our valve cover on just so we can seal up this engine. Valve cover's pretty easy. We have our spark plug tube seals as well. Those can go right there. We're just fitting it in the groove. Getting groovy with it. Okay. Now on our head, we want a little RTV where the head and the timing cover meet. So right there on that seam where the valve cover is gonna go. Same back here. Doesn't take a lot, just a little dab. Now I'll lay this down. There we go. Throw in our bolts. Now we did get 2 new seals for our big bolts. Put those in the middle. That comes in our valve cover gasket kit, or our head gasket kit if we're doing the head. All right, we'll snug these down. We'll start in the middle. These are 7 foot-pounds. We throw in our spark plugs and ignition coils. Hand thread them in. And these are torqued to 13 foot-pounds. Click. They have a little crush washer on them, so you'll feel it crush and then bottom out. Putting on our coils, we want a little dielectric grease inside the boot. That's going to help it slide over the plug easier and then off better in the future. If you do decide to replace your coils, go with a Denso. That's Toyota's brand that they use. Stick with OEM. There's a lot of cheap aftermarket coils that will leave you not feeling well when you have to keep replacing them. I'll snug these down. Now you don't want to do this too tight. I've seen these stripped out before. They're just going into light aluminum. So I'd say 80 inch-pounds. I don't have a torque spec on it, but we'll go G and S. Good and snug. And we can plug our coils in. Get this set down. My camera battery died. All we did before bolting this down was we put our hoses over. Fat hose goes on one nipple, skinny hose goes on the back. And then we got that all set in. We're gonna leave our injectors unplugged, so when we do our initial crank, it doesn't start on us. We just want that oil circulating through the engine. So injectors unplugged, our air box we're gonna leave off, and then we put our VVT solenoid in. We could plug that in. Okay. Next we're gonna put on our water pump pulley. I think that'll be easy to do right now. And then we'll get our motor mount on. Now you can raise and lower the engine as needed. I actually might lower it and do it from underneath. I think that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So let me see what it looks like when I lower it. Oh yeah. Yep, so I'm gonna get that from underneath. So from underneath you have perfect access when the engine's lowered. And what I did to tighten those bolts up is they have these little slots and there's an ear on the back. I don't know if you can see it, but you'll see it when you're down here. But there's a little ear so you can stick an extension in it and it gets caught on that ear and that holds it from spinning, and then you can torque down each of those bolts one by one. So that's what I did for the water pump pulley. Now there's a few things I forgot. So we plugged in our crank position sensor, but the wiring harness has these little harness retainers. There's 2 of them. So what we'll end up doing is just match up to the bolt that they go to, pop that bolt out, and then put it back on. So there's 2 spots that we forgot wherever these match up. Once we have that, then we can put on our air compressor. And I wanna say that buttons up everything down below. Oh, we got our crank pulley that we'll put back on. So we'll do that in a second. Let me just get caught up with this stuff. We'll put this on, I'll throw a torque spec on the screen for this. I'll just do that off camera, just 3 bolts, easy peasy. All right, we got our crankshaft pulley. Now there's just that little key, line it up. There we go. Put our bolt in. Now this is torqued to 95 foot-pounds. So they make a holder for these and you just get it with a torque wrench. All right, let's put the engine mount on. Jack the engine back up. All right, we got this pulley first. I think all these bolts are the same length. Yep, they look like it. I'll slide that under. Looks like I have to pull the water pump pulley back off and lower the engine a little. You can't see anything I'm doing down there, but the water pump pulley does have to come off for that bracket to go on. And we want to lower the engine just to get really good access to it. So all the bolts are easiest to get to from underneath, except this one top bolt. All right, I'll get a torque spec for you on these. All right, now we put this on. All right, we'll get these torqued. All right, now we got this thing. All right, we gotta get this AC line above this bracket. There we go. Remember the one in the frame? That's the stud that we just have to tighten up. Throw all our nuts on. Then we got 2 nuts underneath. I'll get these puppies torqued. Okay, our purge solenoid goes on this. We'll just mount that on. Okay, we got our AC line. It goes right here. Like it got bent a little, we just bend it back. We just want to make sure that it's not going to rub on anything. That's our most important. Okay, and we'll just move this out of the way so it doesn't rub on that mount. Okay, nice, and it's not rubbing over here. Okay, awesome. 2 bolts up top. 1 bolt in the front. And make sure this goes in. I don't know if I have to remove that bracket again or not. I think I am, just for the ease of things. Just gonna push it out of the way. Set this down. Don't forget to plug in our 2 hoses for our washer fluid. Looks like there's an order to things. I'm gonna disconnect the AC line bracket because it has to move out of the way for us. There we go. So that should fit in the little hole underneath. Okay, now we'll remount our AC stuff. We got our 2 electrical connectors for our pumps. Now they are specific. One goes on one, one goes on the other. You can't get them mixed up. So if it's not fitting on one, swap it around. Just snug. All right, we'll put this back. Okay, we can put our brake reservoir on. It goes in the little square slot here first, then slides forward. Little electrical connector. We got our AC pressure sensor connector. All right, let's see, I think this can go under here. There we go, snap in, this can snap in. All right, what are we missing? Let's just give it a good, oh, we got our ground strap here. All right, time to fill it up with oil. Now the first oil you use is not that important. Just use the cheap 5W30. It's only gonna be in the engine for about 20 minutes. Just gonna fill it up. Now coolant, we're gonna install a little funnel. Okay. Before filling up the coolant with our funnel, right here is a 6mm Allen. That's a bleeder for our cooling system. So we'll crack that loose. We'll crack that loose, and then we'll fill that up until we get coolant coming out of here. Now, if you don't want to make a mess, what you can do is get a hose and attach it from here and then fill it into your overflow. So that's just one way to do it. And we'll fill this up. All right, we got coolant coming out. So we'll close this. And we're gonna fill this up just a little more. So we have a little extra in here. We're gonna hook back up our hybrid battery. We're gonna put the service plug back in, get that connected. And then before we start the vehicle, we have one more thing to do, and that's put our serpentine belt on. It routes super easy. We'll tighten that up, and then I'll give you a torque spec for that pulley bolt. We're getting close. All right, we are ready to crank this engine over. Now we have our injectors unplugged because we don't want it to start. We just want the engine to spin, get that oil circulating at a low RPM. So that did 2 things for us. 1, it just spun the engine over, and then 2, let us know that we forgot to hook our exhaust back up. So that was kind of loud. Now because it did not start, it shows that it failed. That's okay. What we can do, clear codes. I want to run through that one more time. All right, it did not start just like we wanted it to, so it failed again. Now we'll just go back through, clear all the codes one more time, and then we'll actually get it to start. So I'm gonna go under, hook up our injector connectors, and get our air box back on, and our mass airflow sensor plugged back in. So I'm gonna do that off camera real quick, Oh, and then our exhaust, we want to get that bolted up too. All right, are you ready? This is the moment of truth. We're gonna start it up for real, have everything connected back together. Are you nervous? I'm a little nervous. Let's hit the button and start to pray. Okay, it didn't shut off. All right, turn it off. I do have a check engine light, so let's see what that's about. Let's go to the engine, hit okay, read fault code. Hopefully it's something simple. Oh, no trouble codes. Why was my check engine light on? All right, last thing to do is put our cowl and wipers back on. And our wiper motor. All right, thanks for watching. This was a big job, a lot of fun. If you have any questions, comment down below. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one.